Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious and mind-boggling topics you'll ever hear about, a hidden truth buried for centuries, found in a 1775 Bible. Yes, you heard that right. This revelation could change everything we thought we knew about history, religion, and even the nature of reality itself. Stick around because what I'm about to share might just prove that everything we've been told is a lie. Have you ever wondered if there's more to the Bible than what we see today? Buried deep in history, hidden in plain sight, lies a version of the Bible that most people have never heard of, the 1775 Bible. For centuries, it held within its pages ideas, verses, and revelations that could completely change the way we understand Christianity. But today, many of those words have been lost to time, altered, censored, erased. Why? What truths were so powerful, so disruptive, that they had to be removed from the Bible itself? The Bible we know today, the one in churches and homes around the world, is not the same as it was in 1775. And these changes didn't happen by accident. They weren't the result of printing errors or innocent translation differences. No, these changes were intentional. The 1775 Bible, and others like it, contained passages that directly challenged the established teachings of the church. These were verses that could have made you question everything: the church, your relationship with God, and maybe even the nature of God itself. So who decides what goes into the Bible? It's not some divine script written in the sky. It's men, powerful men with agendas. Over centuries, they've shaped what we're allowed to read, deciding which parts of the Bible stay and which parts are conveniently left out. One key passage from the 1775 Bible spoke of a very different relationship between humanity and God. It wasn't the distant, authoritative God most of us are taught to believe in. Instead, this version suggested that the divine isn't far away, but rather it's within you. Imagine the impact of that idea. If the divine is within you, everything changes. It empowers you. It gives you spiritual authority. And if people believed that, the institutional church would no longer be necessary. That's exactly why these verses were removed. In the late 18th century, behind closed doors, religious leaders, politicians, and scholars debated what was too dangerous to include in the Bible. They weren't arguing over minor grammatical details. They were deciding whether ordinary people should be allowed to read verses that empower them, verses that encourage them to realize their own spiritual potential, verses that could reshape everything. Imagine for a moment that the church isn't the necessary middleman between you and God. This was the hidden battle over the Bible, a struggle for control. The church needed you to rely on them, on their teachings, their authority. They couldn't risk you believing that you had a direct connection to the divine. And that's why the 1775 Bible was changed, altered in ways that most people today don't even realize. Words were erased, passages omitted, and in their place, scripture that reinforced obedience, hierarchy, and control. The Bible was never just a religious text. It was also a tool for control. Control the narrative, and you control the people. In the 1775 Bible, you'll find hints of a more personal faith, passages that spoke of an intimate connection between humanity and the divine without the need for a mediator, without someone telling you what God's will is. And that's what made it so dangerous. If you don't need the church, their entire structure starts to crumble. The powerful lose their grip. Throughout history, councils of church leaders, translators, and political figures made decisions about what stayed in the Bible and what didn't. These weren't just theological debates. They were decisions with huge social and political consequences. The removal of key verses wasn't just about spiritual guidance. It was about control. Take away people's ability to question, and you keep them in line. So what exactly was removed? One glaring example is the manipulation of the original name of God. In the 1775 Bible, the name used for God was far more complex and personal than the one we know today. The shift in translation wasn't just a linguistic choice, it transformed the very understanding of who God is. Instead of a personal, approachable deity, we got a distant, often angry figure. That's not by accident. It's a shift that made people more obedient, more dependent on religious leaders to interpret the divine for them. And it didn't stop there. The 1,775 Bible referenced texts and books that have since been erased from history. Lost books that held ideas the church didn't want you to see. Imagine for a moment that the missing books of the Bible could offer radically different perspectives on Christianity. Think about texts like the Gospel of Thomas and the Book of Enoch. These works were once part of a broader biblical tradition, but they didn't make the final cut. Why? Because they presented a view of spirituality focused on personal enlightenment rather than rigid religious rules. These missing books and verses weren't excluded because they were false. They were removed because they were inconvenient. They empowered you, granting too much independence and encouraging you to ask the questions the church didn't want you to ask. If you believe that the divine already resides within you, if you feel you don't need an institution dictating your spiritual path, the church's influence begins to wane. Now, consider the name of God. It's one of the most central and defining aspects of any religious text, especially the Bible. But what if I told you that the name of God we use today doesn't even come close to what's written in some of the earliest biblical manuscripts? That's right, the name of God has been altered, mistranslated, and in some cases, outright removed. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the 1,775 Bible. This isn't just a minor detail, it's a change that redefines everything you think you know about divinity. In the 1,775 Bible, references to God include names and titles that don't even appear in most modern translations. We're talking about names that connect to ancient Hebrew roots, names that carry entirely different meanings and implications, painting a distinct picture of who or what God truly is. Most of us are familiar with names like God, Lord, or Jehovah, right? But did you know that earlier versions often used the term Elohim? Here's where it gets fascinating. Elohim isn't singular, it's plural. Now, pause for a moment. A plural name for God? If you grew up hearing about a single all-powerful deity, this should raise some serious questions. What does this plural designation mean for our understanding of the divine? The name Elohim suggests something far more complex, a multifaceted, maybe even a multi-being concept of the divine. It opens the door to interpretations that the divine isn't just one entity, but perhaps a collection or even a council of divine beings. So why change it? Why alter the name from Elohim to God or Lord, stripping away its complexity and depth? The answer lies in control. By simplifying the name and reducing God to a singular authoritarian figure, it reinforces a system where one church or authority can claim to speak directly for this singular deity. If the name remained Elohim, it would be much harder to centralize power and assert absolute authority over interpretation. Imagine trying to claim divine mandate when the divine is plural, diverse, and multifaceted. The shift to God or Lord conveniently simplifies things. There's one God, one authority, and you must follow what you're told. But here's the catch. It wasn't just about the translation. It represented a deliberate narrowing of what people are allowed to believe. Elohim is tied to ancient traditions and stories that extend beyond just Jewish and Christian religions. It appears in Sumerian, Akkadian, and Canaanite mythologies, where gods and divine beings were complex and interacted with humanity in ways we'd consider far more personal. The 1,775 Bible, with its references to Elohim, connects to these older narrative stories where humans weren't just subjects of a distant god, but active participants in a larger divine drama. And the changes didn't stop there. In some places, the 1,775 Bible also used the name YHWH or Yahweh. You might think, isn't that still used today? Yes, but not in the way it was originally intended. Yahweh wasn't just a name for God. It was an intimate, personal identifier. It was meant to signify a deeper, more personal relationship between the divine and humanity, a connection that has been lost in translation. The name Yahweh once signified a close, covenantal relationship between God and humanity. But today, in most Bibles, it's been replaced with Lord, a title that conveys power and distance, placing God far above you. This shift from Yahweh to Lord represents more than just a change in language. It signifies a fundamental change in how you're expected to relate to God. It transforms your relationship from one of intimacy to that of a subject in a kingdom. The 1775 Bible preserved these older, more intimate names for God, offering people a glimpse into a version of divinity that was more approachable, more human, and far less authoritarian. But that was a problem for the institutions of the time. You see, if people believed they could connect with Yahweh on their own, or if they understood the depth of Balaam, they wouldn't need priests or intermediaries. They could seek that relationship independently. So, just like with other controversial passages, these names were changed, sanitized, and erased in later versions. Consider the implications. If the very name of God is altered, how much of the rest of the message has been reshaped to fit the needs of those in power? We're not talking about minor tweaks here. This is a significant shift in how you're meant to understand the divine. There's a reason these truths have been kept hidden. The reality behind these ancient names challenges the entire structure of modern Christianity. If Elohim suggests multiple divine beings, and if Yahweh signifies a personal, approachable relationship with the divine, then the entire hierarchy built up over centuries begins to crumble. Suddenly, you don't need a church to mediate your relationship with God. You don't need religious leaders to interpret divine will on your behalf. The connection is already there, waiting for you to rediscover it. And maybe that's the point. Perhaps the reason these names were altered was to keep you from realizing the power and intimacy that have always been within your reach. The reason parts of the Bible were altered, erased, and forgotten is that those in power didn't want you to realize just how close you really are to the divine. They didn't want you to understand that your perception of God could be broader, deeper, and more personal than the carefully crafted image they've been presenting. One of the most shocking discoveries about the 1775 Bible isn't just what it contains. It's what used to be in it and what's missing now. I'm talking about entire books, whole chapters, and complete stories simply erased from the modern version you know today. These are the so-called lost books of the Bible, and they change everything. You might be wondering, how do you lose parts of the Bible? That seems like a pretty significant thing to misplace, doesn't it? Well, it didn't happen by accident, it was intentional. It all started with church leaders, councils, and political rulers who decided that certain texts were too controversial, too dangerous, or simply didn't fit the narrative they wanted to promote. But these lost books, whether removed from the Bible entirely or labeled as apocryphal and pushed to the margins, offer a completely different perspective on spirituality. They include visions, prophecies, and teachings that could have radically changed the way we understand Christianity today. Take, for example, the Gospel of Thomas, the Book of Enoch, and the Wisdom of Solomon. These aren't just fringe writings. They were once considered part of the sacred scriptures, read and respected by early Christian communities. Let's look at the Book of Enoch. This ancient text dives deep into the narrative of fallen angels, the origins of evil, and a cosmic battle between good and evil that goes far beyond the typical Sunday school story. According to the text, Enoch was taken up to heaven and given profound insights into the workings of the universe. These texts challenge the very foundations of what we've been taught. They offer a richer, more complex understanding of the divine, one that connects you directly to the spiritual truths that have been hidden for far too long. Why would a book like the Book of Enoch be removed from the biblical canon? It raises eyebrows, doesn't it? Could it be because it exposes truths that challenge the traditional narrative? The Book of Enoch offers a glimpse into a more intricate, multi-dimensional spiritual world, one where humanity isn't just a passive player, but an integral part of a much larger cosmic drama. Then there's the Gospel of Thomas. This one is truly mind-blowing. Unlike the canonical Gospels that focus on miracles and parables, the Gospel of Thomas is a collection of sayings attributed directly to Jesus. These sayings present a portrait of Jesus that differs significantly from the one most Christians are familiar with. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus isn't teaching about sin, repentance, or judgment. Instead, he emphasizes self-knowledge, personal enlightenment, and the idea that the kingdom of God is already within you, not in some distant heaven, but right here, inside each and every one of us. This kind of message, one that returns spiritual authority to your own hands, was dangerous. It threatened the very foundations of the institutional church. So what did they do? They removed it, buried it, and labeled it heretical anything to ensure you don't discover it. Because if you did, you might start questioning why this empowering message was excluded from the official Bible. Why don't we hear more about these lost gospels? The reason is simple. They give you too much freedom. If you begin to believe that the divine resides within you and isn't locked away in a church, the entire power structure begins to unravel. The Wisdom of Solomon is another text with a complicated history. Known for its profound philosophical reflections on wisdom, justice, and the nature of God, this book delves into the immortal soul and humanity's struggle to attain divine wisdom. It even touches on the afterlife in ways that are more mystical than traditional teachings. Yet, like the others, it was either excluded or downplayed over the centuries. These texts offer powerful insights that challenge the status quo and invite you to rethink your relationship with the divine. So why not explore what has been hidden? What truths might you uncover about your own spirituality? For centuries, the idea that divine knowledge isn't just reserved for religious authorities has been suppressed. Instead, it's something anyone, yes, even you can pursue if you're willing to seek it out. What we're left with today is a heavily edited version of the Bible, one that obscures early Christian traditions embracing self-discovery, personal enlightenment, and the belief that divinity isn't confined to temples or churches. It's accessible to all, and that message is a threat to any institution that craves control over the narrative. These lost books weren't cut because they were long or unnecessary. They were intentionally buried because they raised crucial questions about authority, about what it truly means to have a relationship with the divine, and whether we've been sold a version of Christianity that emphasizes obedience over enlightenment. When most people think of the Bible, one of the first concepts that comes to mind is hell, a place of eternal punishment, fire, and brimstone. This image has shaped much of Christian theology for centuries, used in sermons to instill fear, keep people in line, and define the stakes of salvation. But the 1775 Bible and other earlier versions reveal something very different. The hell you've been taught to fear may not even exist in the way you think. Welcome to Blessovia Science TV, where we take you on an exhilarating journey through the cosmos and unravel the mysteries of science. We are excited to offer you the opportunity to become a valued member of our ever-growing community of cosmic enthusiasts and knowledge seekers. Exclusive access to cosmic content. As a member of Blessovia Science TV, you will gain exclusive access to a treasure trove of cosmic content, including documentaries, interviews with leading scientists, space missions updates, and awe-inspiring visualizations of the universe, live Q, and sessions with experts. Your membership will grant you the chance to participate in live Q and sessions with renowned scientists, astronomers, and space explorers. Get your burning questions answered by those who push the boundaries of human knowledge. Embark on a journey that spans the cosmos and join us in unraveling the secrets of the universe. Become a Blessovia Science TV member today, and together we will reach for the stars. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and share. Don't forget to leave your comment.